About 2 years ago, I posted this video, which basically outlined that the once world-class Big Bash League had descended into what could only be described as an eyesore for the very few viewers who actually bothered to tune in or even attend this garbage. The time period I am referring to is the BBL between the years 2020 and 2022, where crowds, albeit impacted by COVID, slumped to lows never seen before in Australian professional sport. To put into perspective how bad things were at this point, let's run through some numbers from the BBL 11 or 2021 to 22 season, statistically the worst on record in terms of crowd attendance. The highest crowd for this season was a paltry 21,562, seen in the Melbourne Derby between the Stars and the Renegades. This itself was the lowest ever crowd between the two teams in Melbourne, showing just how poor this season truly was. The average crowd was a touch above 7,000, again unsurprisingly the lowest average season crowd by a considerable margin. The season also somehow managed to produce two crowds of well under 1,000, being 480 and 556, which is absolutely unbelievable given that just a few seasons prior, the BBL regularly saw crowds above 40,000. Turns out the few that went to the regular season matches seemed uninterested to go to the final, which drew a crowd of just 10,333 in the sporting heartland of Melbourne. These abysmal crowd numbers were certainly not helped by games often being scheduled in bizarre places given the teams playing. The Scorchers and the Thunder played off on the Gold Coast, which unsurprisingly was one of the sub-1,000 crowds, and the Hurricanes and the Thunder locked horns at the MCG, both of these games being in completely different states to where the participating teams were based. The league also scheduled games at simply ridiculous times as well. Notably, the Strikers and the Scorchers played off at 10:10 am local time, and even stranger, 7:40 am Perth time. The subsequent BBL 12 season didn't fare much better either, although with the lifting of COVID restrictions the average crowd grew to around 16,000, still a far cry from the league's glory days. However, with crowds still this low, the league was simply becoming unsustainable. As a result of this, the league decided to step in, announcing that the 2023-24 season would be shortened to a 44-game season instead of the usual 60 to 70. The thinking around this was that the season would become much more exciting with there being practically zero chance of any games being dead rubbers, where both teams were mathematically unable to make a push for the finals. To say this was a success would be an understatement. The shorter season, combined with teams drafting players who were actually relevant on the international stage, such as Quinton de Kock, Colin Munro and Corey Anderson, meant that crowds flocked to the Big Bash on a scale not seen in almost 7 years. The average crowd climbed to 21,333. However, this doesn't accurately reflect the sheer scale to which fans flocked the stands in the later half of the season. The period after the turn of the new year saw a total of 7 games draw above 30,000 spectators, compared to just 2 in the 2023 half. 6 out of the 8 teams had an average home crowd above 20,000, and amazingly, all 6 had a higher average than the highest crowd 2 seasons earlier in the Stars-Renegades clash. On top of this, a genuine sold-out final for the second consecutive season capped off what can only be described as a highly successful season. But things would seemingly only get better from here. The shortened season paved a way for emerging Test stars Sam Constas and Nathan McSweeney to make a name for themselves in the short format, whilst also providing Aussie cricketing legends such as David Warner and Peter Siddle an opportunity to assert their status as one of the sport's greats. In similar fashion to the previous season, high-profile internationals showcased their abilities in the BBL, with English Test stars Ben Duckett and Ollie Pope, as well as Kiwis Finn Allen and Adam Milne highlighting the improvement in the standard of the league's international participants. Less games throughout the tournament gave every match a purpose, with storylines erupting from every game that would shake up the competition and make for enthralling viewing for fans. The Melbourne Stars' incredible rise from rock bottom to playing finals left all fans on edge, with such a storyline worthy of its own video. with the average attendance across the season at an unthinkable 22,825, this edition of the Big Bash deserved a fairy tale finish to a remarkable season. Mitch Owen's 100 off just 39 balls put the icing on the cake, with the Hobart Hurricanes claiming their maiden Big Bash title in the most watched final in the history of the competition. The innings, the match, and the season cemented the Big Bash League status as well and truly recovered from prior struggles, as the league attempts to reach new heights as the standard of cricket improves worldwide.